Back show today. Ryan Field, a little bit of keys to the game Saturday, and then picks around the country. Let's get started.
You are Locked On Northwestern, your daily podcast on the Northwestern Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. This is Locked On Northwestern, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Carter Bird, and thank you for making Locked On Northwestern your first listen every day. We're available wherever you get podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever. We're also on YouTube. Just search Locked On Northwestern. Make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, leave a comment, leave a review. Make sure we get your feedback because we want to make the show better all the time. Also, today's show is brought to you by Underdog. Sign up on UnderdogFantasy.com with promo code Locked On and get your first deposit doubled up to $100. All right, let's jump right into it. First off, news we couldn't get to yesterday because we had a crossover episode, but Ryan Field, Northwestern broke the news that Ryan Field's going to be renovated. The new capacity, well, first off, it's going to look super, super futuristic. I'm excited about it. It's going to look like a super high-end, almost like European football or soccer stadium, depending on how you say it. The capacity is going to be 35,000, which is going to be 12,000 fewer than what it's at now. I believe it took $6.1 billion of fundraising to be able to build this stadium. I think it'll look bigger than 35,000 on television. I think it'll look more filled up. It'll make the experience on game days look better. There will be a canopy around the top to reduce noise and light pollution. Most of this I got from the Chicago Tribune's story on it. And then I think it's going to have comfortable seats, which is going to be a big, big plus. Most of these college stadiums just have the bleachers. You're also going to have some high-tech scoreboards in there and concessions from local restaurants. That'll be exciting. That'll be a great opportunity for local restaurants to kind of get their product in front of fans and visiting fans as well. There'll be a green space outside the stadium for tailgating. And they're also going to have some concerts in there to make it financially viable, the project at least. I know the plans are old Ryan Field. The plans are to demolish it after next season, the 2023 season, and the new field to be finished in 2026. There obviously will be a little bit of a overlap period where Northwestern's going to have to find somewhere else to play. They're still working on that. It's the last thing that I've read about it. But hey, I'm excited about this. It excites me. I think it generates excitement around the program, and I think it shows the commitment that Northwestern is making to football, and I think that's encouraging. I think that's only a positive as we move into this new kind of modern era of college football with the Big Ten and the SEC, what's seeming like they hold all the power. I mean, now more than ever, you kind of have to show that commitment to football, and I think Northwestern is doing just that here. So that's the news on Ryan Field. We're going to start talking about the keys to this game, what Northwestern has to do on Saturday against Penn State to have success. And I think, as we talked about yesterday on the crossover, Northwestern has to stop the run. They have to stop the run. Nick Singleton and Katron Allen are dudes. They are really, really good, and they are a problem. And Singleton's got his 42 attempts for 376 yards, 4 touchdowns, averaging 9 yards a pop. Katron Allen, 36 attempts, 217 yards, 3 touchdowns, 6 yards a pop. So both of them are very, very effective. I think the offense is significantly more explosive when they are running the football. And so I think that's a big, big key for Northwestern. as they look towards this game on tomorrow. And then I think the run game for Penn State helps take the burden off Clifford. We've seen Clifford at times struggle when things are put on his shoulders, and we'll talk more about that here in a second. I think the other big key is run the football. Your offensive line is the best unit you have on offense right there with the running backs. Make good use of it. You have a good offensive line. Control the football, control the clock, control the field position. Keep that Northwestern offense off the field, and keep that Northwestern defense on the field. You heard Zach talk about it yesterday when we were talking about this game. The strategy should be almost see just if you can muck it up and just control the football, win field position, that type of stuff. Get Evan Hull going. Struggled a little bit last week. Has been the heart and soul of this offense all year long. Over 300 yards rushing, over 300 yards receiving. Not many backs in the country can boast something like that. He is your biggest player. He's your biggest key player. Let's say it that way. And then also, I mean, behind that offensive line, that running the football is only going to make it easier on Ryan Helinski. They're going to have to commit bodies to the run, which should open things up in the pass game a little bit. And this offensive line can make Ryan Helinski feel comfortable back there. I think they're experienced enough. I think run the ball, but also that offensive line needs to step up and play well. Next up, win the turnover battle. Get some sort of pressure on Sean Clifford and see if he makes some mistakes. Hunt the football when you're out on the field. Look at how the last few games went. Northwestern was the better team on the field, but the result didn't go their way because they kept losing the turnover battle. Northwestern has to get positive in the turnover battle to compete in this game. Now, when you look at this game, the line is Penn State minus 25, and then it's also the over-under is 51. I think Northwestern is going to cover 25. I said yesterday 34-17. I'm going to take the under of 51. I don't like taking the under there, but I do think that this has a chance to turn into a more muck-it-up, low-scoring game. And I think Northwestern can compete in a game like that. And maybe if you do win that turnover battle, you're in a one-score game in the fourth quarter. I think that would be a very exciting place for Northwestern to be in this game after the last few weeks. I think that'd be very key. Coming up here in a second, we're going to take a look around the Big Ten. But first, I want to tell you about our friends at Underdog. This episode is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to spice up college football season. It's easy to get started, and it's easy to play while you're watching your favorite team play. I know I'm going to be looking at Underdog this weekend. I'm going to set a lineup, but let's look at what Underdog has for its pick'em this week with Northwestern. Ryan Helinski, his over-under for passing yards is 213.5. Evan Hull, his over-under for rushing yards is 69.5. Malik Washington, his receiving yards number is 56.5. And Donnie Navarro, his over-under is 29.5. If I had to make picks on that right now, I'm probably going to go Ryan Helinski under 213.5, just because I think that this Northwestern team is going to have to run the ball a lot to be competitive in this one. I'll take Evan Hull over 69.5. He's only gone below that number, once this year. And I think he's plenty good to get back going behind this offensive line. I think he only has to rip off one or two explosive runs to help push him over that total in my mind. Malik Washington under 56.5 would be my pick, just because I am picking under 213.5 for Helinski's passing yards, just because I think the running the ball is so important. And also with that, I'm going to take Donnie Navarro under 29.5 receiving yards. But go to Underdog to make your own picks. Sign up with promo code Locked On, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. So deposit $100 and get $100 free. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com or find the Underdog Fantasy app in the App Store or Google Play Store. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code Locked On. Get in on the college football pick'em action today. All right, let's get back to the looking around the the Big Ten here. We're going to start kind of as the games progress throughout the day. First up, number 4, Michigan at Iowa. Michigan's a 10.5-point favorite in this game. Over-under of 51. Look, Michigan's just too good, and Iowa can't score. I believe I saw this week. Spencer Petras, has the lowest passing and rushing EPA by any quarterback in the country. Combine it, and it's a really, really bad recipe. Give me Michigan -10 and the under 51.5. Next up, Purdue at number 21, Minnesota. The line is Minnesota -12 and over-under of 52. I think Purdue can test this Minnesota team. I know they're outscoring everybody 1,000,000,000. And I think that Purdue can score some. And I know this Minnesota team can. I know Tanner Morgan is playing really, really good ball. I know he's according to Pro Football Focus, he might be the best player in the country right now. But then I also see the eye-popping numbers that Charlie Jones is putting up at receiver for Purdue. Give me Minnesota -12 over-under. Purdue +12, and I'll take the over 52. I think that both those teams have the ability to score some points. Next up, Illinois at Wisconsin. Wisconsin is a 7-point favorite in this one. Over-under of 43.5. It's a battle of running backs here. Both teams have really, really strong running backs. Illinois might have the slight edge there. Wisconsin in trouble? Wisconsin's got a couple losses already through 4 games. They look vulnerable. They look not as competitive as we've seen them. Something to keep an eye on. Meanwhile, Illinois looks a little more competent than we thought they'd be coming into the year. So for that reason, give me Illinois +7 and under 43.5. I think that turns into an ugly game where the running backs are the storyline, and they're running, and when they're running that much, the game shortens up, and you're probably going to see fewer points on the board. Next up, Rutgers at number 3 Ohio State. I didn't write down the ranking on that one. But yeah, I mean, top 3 team there in Ohio State. The line is Ohio State -39.5, over-under of 58. First off, this is gross. This is a bad Rutgers team playing the best team in the Big Ten. Team with weapons all over the field. First-round receivers, first-round quarterbacks, first-round running backs. I mean, literally everywhere on the offense, you see weapons. And on Rutgers' side, they don't really score a lot of points. I know they've had some injuries at quarterback. They've been running some backups out there this year. Just is my reaction to this game. But too many weapons for Ohio State. I'll take Ohio State -39.5, which feels ridiculous to say out loud. And I'll take under 58 in that one. Next up, Michigan State at Maryland. Maryland is an 8-point favorite in this one. Over-under 58.5. Michigan State's not that good. They're just not. They took a huge step back. I mean, they missed the guys that they lost last season. Maryland might be pretty good. I think they can score at least. And so for that reason, I will take Maryland -8 and under 58.5. I just don't think Michigan State is the team that we saw previously last season. And finally, to round out the Big Ten, Indiana at Nebraska. Don't really have true notes here. I think Nebraska's better than the record. I know their record's 1-3. I think Indiana's worse than their record, 3-1. I think they've gotten bailed out a couple times. I don't think they're very good. The line is Nebraska -5, over-under is 61. And as a result, give me Nebraska -5 and the under 61 in that one. And that's going to be my picks for the Big Ten this week. All those lines are brought to you by Bet Online. And also, I mean, as you look at those games around the Big Ten, you need to know what your team is up against across the Big Ten with Locked On Big Ten. Everyday host Nate Dickinson and the local experts of Locked On take you across the Big Ten in 30 minutes, make Locked On Big Ten your second listen after Locked On Northwestern, of course. Locked On Big Ten. All right, so now that we've talked about the fun games in the Big Ten, and we've talked about Ryan Field, and we've talked about the keys to the Northwestern Penn State game, let's take a look around the country. We're going to stick mainly in the top 25 because there's some interesting games this week. We're going to start with a top 14 matchup in the SEC. Number 7, Kentucky on the road at number 14, Ole Miss. Ole Miss is a 7-point favorite in that one. Over under 54.5. I think Kentucky is a really good team. I think they're very much a dark horse threat for Georgia in the SEC East. Ole Miss, go look at their schedule. They haven't played anybody. Last week they struggled with Tulsa, who's not very good. Give me the Cats. Give me Kentucky +7. Give me under 54.5. Next up, number 18, Oklahoma, coming off a loss on the road at TCU. The line is Oklahoma -6. The over-under 69, so they expect a lot of points. And my notes here, look, Max Duggan is playing about as good of ball as you could possibly ask him to play. I talked about how Petrus was one of he was the worst quarterback in EPA, expected points added, in passing and rushing for a quarterback. Max Duggan's on the complete opposite of that, one of the best in the country in both aspects. I think for that reason, this TCU team might be getting overlooked here in this one. Give me TCU +6, but I will take the under of 69. I think it's a really high number. I think it's just a smarter play to assume that something's going to go awry with that one. Next up, number 2, Alabama at number 20, Arkansas. The line is Alabama on the road against a top 20 team, -17, over under of 61 points. Look, Arkansas, I know they just lost to Texas A&M. They should have won that game. 97-yard fumble return where one guy handed off to another guy while being tackled for a touchdown went against them. Missed the field goal off the upright. You lose. Heartbreaker. I do think there's something to say about the fact that if it was anybody else coming in there, it would be a letdown spot. But because it's number 2 Alabama, and because Sam Pittman is a good coach, and because of what we saw in 2021 when Arkansas went on the road and gave Alabama every bit that they wanted, and we've seen Alabama struggle on the road. We've seen Bryce Young struggle on the road. Give me the Hogs +17 and over 61 for the total. Hey, don't be shocked. Don't be shocked if Arkansas pulls the upset. So I'm gonna say, if I knew what the I just didn't write down the money line odds. If I knew what they were, I'd probably sprinkle a little bit on Arkansas there at +17. All right, next up, number 9, Oklahoma State at number 16, Baylor. The line is Baylor -2.5, over under 56.5. Look, we know Oklahoma State's offense is good. We know the defense at times has been bad. I don't know how legit Baylor is. I think that BYU game exposed something to me. I think there's a lack of trust in Blake Shapen maybe in big spots. And as a result, give me Okie State +2.5, over 56.5. I do think that some points are scored in this one. Next up, number 22, Wake Forest on the road at number 23, Florida State. FSU is a 6.5-point favorite in this one. The over-under is 64. I don't think FSU's that good. I think they've done well to be undefeated at this point. Wake's coming off a heartbreaker against Clemson, but that Wake offense is just awesome. It's so good. Sam Hartman's so good. Any team in the country doesn't have Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud right now, you'd be begging for a quarterback like Sam Hartman. Give me Wake Forest plus 6.5, and I will take over 64 in that one. Next up, number 17, Texas A&M on the road at Mississippi State. The line is Mississippi State -4, over under 45. Look, A&M's offense is awful. They are the Iowa of the SEC. The offense is so bad, but yet they find ways to win games. It was a two-man offense to this point in the year. Aeneas Smith broke his leg, out for the year. I think this has a chance to get ugly. I think Mississippi State's going to kill them. Mississippi State beat him last year in College Station. They're going to get him again. I just think that this A&M defense is too young, and this Mississippi State offense is too unique for SEC standards. Give me Mississippi State -4, and I'll take over 45 in that one because State's going to put up points. A&M may not, but State will. Finally, we will wrap this up with number 10, NC State, on the road at number 5, Clemson. Look, I think the Clemson offense put up some points last week. They're a 7-point favorite this week, over-under 43.5. The fact that they put up 51 last week and the over-under is 43.5 should tell you something about that Wake Forest defense, about how Vegas and BetOnline and everybody involved just does not really believe in that Wake Forest defense, and it was a little bit more of an aberration than what we're going to see week to week with this Clemson offense. Devin Leary, I think NC State has a better quarterback. I think he's going to put it together in this one. Give me NC State +7 and the under 43.5. I sneaky think NC State's going to win that one because they are my pick to win the ACC this year and one of my picks for the college football playoff. On my other daily radio show, I made that pick earlier this year. But yeah, I just think I like NC State a lot. I think they pull it off. I think they pull it off in Clemson, get the job done. And so that's going to wrap up our look around the country. That's going to wrap up today's show. We looked around the country. We looked around the Big Ten. We talked about the Northwestern Penn State game and the key moments, the key points that Northwestern needs to execute to stay in that game. I do think Northwestern can stay in the game. I think they will stay in the game. I think Pat Fitzgerald is too good of a coach to get the doors blown off him like you saw Brian Harsin and Auburn get the doors blown off them by Penn State. Then we talked about Ryan Field and the renovation there. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for today's show. Thank you for joining Locked On Northwestern. Thank you for making Locked On Northwestern your first listen every day for anything and everything Northwestern. We are available wherever you get podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever. We're also on YouTube. Just search Locked On Northwestern, and you can find us there. Make sure you turn on notifications. Make sure you subscribe. Leave a review. Leave a comment. We'd love your feedback. We'd love to make the show better. But I'm your host, Carter Bird. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at CarterBird13. And I'll see you next time.